just 2 years after the occupation of Wounded Knee by the American Indian movement and residents of the Oglala Nation, a reign of terror brought violence and death in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. On June 26, 1975, 2 FBI agents were killed at the Jumping Bull property. They died within 10 minutes of the shooting, and their deaths triggered a nationwide manhunt and sparked several hours of gunfire that left Joe Stuntz dead and another imprisoned for life. While his co-defendants, Dino Butler and Bob Rubidoux, were found not guilty by reason of self-defense, Leonard Peltier was charged with the murder of the 2 FBI agents and is currently sitting 2 consecutive life sentences in federal prison. Each year, members of the Oglala Nation and residents of the Oglala community get together and remember the sad events that transpired that day. And they remember those who were killed, such as Joe Stuntz, and those who died in the aftermath of the reign of terror, such as Anime Aquash. Youth runners make a journey from Camp Justice, which was a camp created by Lakota mothers in protest of alcohol sales in the White Clay community, and the runners run to the cemetery where Joe Stuntz and Anime Aquash were buried. While the rest of the nation has moved on from the tragic events of that day and the so-called reign of terror that brought death and destruction to the reservation community in the wake of the Wounded Knee occupation, the wounds are still fresh in the minds of many of the Oglala residents. The events are as much somber in commemoration of those who lost their lives as they are celebratory for the victories that were achieved. It was here in this humble community that began an international movement that led to the adoption of the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People in 2007. And it's important to remember that the sacrifices that members of the American Indian movement, as well as their supporters, made for Indigenous peoples to receive that kind of recognition for human rights, as well as for treaty rights. And while Leonard Peltier sits behind bars to this day, the investigations of the murders of Joe Stuntz still remain unsolved or uninvestigated, as well as dozens of other Lakota and Dakota, as well as other Native peoples' deaths remain uninvestigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigations or the federal government itself. Jean Roach was just 14 years old at the time of the shooting at the Jumping Bull property. She's Minikoju Lakota from the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe and is currently co-director of the International Leonard Peltier Defense Committee. She was also friends with both Anime Aquash and Joe Stuntz.
See, Joe Stuntz, see, they have his mark over there. I don't know what that means. See over here? Anime was buried here somewhere too, but they moved her. See, I'm not sure if they moved him. Someone told me they did, but I don't know.
So why did they run here?
This is where well, I think before the run began a few years ago, they always had this circle here. They come here and they pray, and then they walk towards Grandma Jumping Bull's. But because Joe Stuntz is buried here, Anime Aquash was buried here, but it looks like they moved both of them. See, this is her marker right there. But I know definitely she was moved.
So you knew both Joe and Anime?
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, right before he got killed, I was helping him put a bandage on his arm because he got burnt by a muffler. So we were hanging out in the camp, so we heard the gunshots. So he took off running, you know, everybody took off, all the guys took off running up to the top, you know, because we were like down in the lower level. We had a camp down there. That was the last time we seen him. But yeah, so a lot of Well, when I've been here a long time ago, I think they were only just this was the Littles, their family cemetery. But they held Joe's burial down there. They had him in a teepee after June 26th. But when they had him sitting in a teepee and they buried him in the teepee that they had down at the camp, we had a teepee, and the feds, knifed it all up, tore all our tents and stuff up. So that's what he was wrapped in, and they buried him Dakota traditional way.
You guys had to sneak into the funeral?
Well, me and my friend, nobody really knew who was what or who was what, So yeah, we were hiding out in Porcupine, and me and my friend Lena, we walked down to the store and cut right over here. So yeah, had to make sure we came to see Joe get buried. But yeah, it's a long time ago. So yeah, so how many years ago is that?
47.
Yeah, 47 years. Wow. But a lot of people, from the movement have been passed on since then. I think Bo Lilskai's buried here too. A lot of different movement people. But I'm almost positive that that I heard that Joe's not here no more. But I know Anime's been moved.
Yeah, and that's his
one of his markers, yeah.
Yeah, one of his placards.
Incident at Oglala warrior, American Indian Movement patriot, Coeur d'Alene tribe, Spokane, Washington. Died with honor defending his people. So yeah, he barely, he got shot about right here. Like another inch, he wouldn't, got missed. But never know why.
Did they ever find out who killed him?
No, his death has never been investigated. He was murdered, and of course they didn't really care. They still don't care. That's why Leonard Peltier is still in prison.
And what about Anime? Why did they bury Anime here?
Because the people, the women of the Oglalas got her from, I think, she was buried once down in Red Cloud, and they released her body to some women. I'm not sure exactly who, but they had her funeral here, and up here at the Jumping Bull Hall. It's no longer there, and they buried her here. I guess back then there wasn't real close communication. You couldn't just call on the cell phone, and I'm not sure why, the reason why, but basically if you look at hers too, it says that died with honor defending her people. Woman warrior, the Wounded Knee, 1973, American Indian Movement patriot. Micmac tribe. I don't know how to say the next one, but Nova Scotia. But she was definitely part of our circle, when we used to stay here in Oglala. A couple times I've seen her here. And after the shootout, she came down to Porcupine. She said, I've been missing you guys, She was worried, She was like their bro. She was on a whole nother level as a woman, She was kind of more of a warrior status. She wasn't she was in the kitchen too, She did everything, and that's kind of what a warrior is. They don't just stop standing up in front, but they're in the kitchen. They're doing the things that, have to be done, and it didn't really matter what it was. But yeah, she was a pretty strong woman, and I feel like a lot of people were jealous of her because of her beauty, and who knows why she was killed. But I know whoever did it will have to pay someday, because you don't just go and tell somebody. The theory is that some people think first the whole American Indian movement, or it was a conspiracy, but that's not true. Somebody made a decision upon themselves that did it, I know someone can't tell me go kill somebody. Whoever did it, or the ones that were there, one of them pulled the trigger, but they all pointed fingers at each other. But I think that, I don't know, I think they could have stopped it. She didn't have to die.
What do you think the biggest misconception about that day is, 1975?
What, June 26th? I think the misconception is that the FBI actually had a reason to be here. And, you know, under sovereign nations, you know, they have to have a real reason to be here. And the reason they came out was looking for somebody's cowboy boots. To me, that doesn't qualify as one of the top crimes that they're, you know, they put themselves to be able to be here for. So it's questionable. They were unmarked cars. They didn't have uniforms on. And the time period was lived by the law of the gun. People were being shot at, run over, killed. So everybody's on the defensive and basically live by the gun. That's why Leonard and them were doing security here in Oglala. They were asked by the grandma and grandpa and the community members to be here. And that's just for the mere reason if you couldn't have a sweat lodge without being shot at or targeted, or if you had long hair, same thing. So yeah, people need security, especially American Indian movement. So we have like the tribal government under Dick Wilson that was supplied by the United States government, ammunition, automatic weapons, APCs. They got all that during Wounded Knee, but they continued that reign of terror afterwards. And they were basically vigilantes against their own people. And anybody that had ceremonies, or if you were associated with AIM, if you had long hair, you were a target by the goon squads. So yeah, it was a pretty scary time, you know. And I'm thankful that Leonard and them were there, you know, to protect us, you know. They protected us from, you know, death. You know, my brother was only 11. He had no choice but to turn himself in. You know, we had a choice at the time. Are you gonna, you can, you know, I'm sorry, this is what Leonard told us, me and my brother and everybody. Sorry, you know, this is going on. You guys all make a decision. I'll go up there on top of that hill with your hands up and turn yourself in. You know, stand up there like that. And my brother didn't have a choice because he was only 11. But he went up there. All of us decided to stay. We're all going to go out together. I think there was 11 of us. And so when my brother went up there, you could hear gunshots. And he was telling me that, you know, they shot at him and he went to an outhouse. But he survived, so we're still here today. And it really feels, I feel actually kind of sad, kind of happy, because I survived this long to tell the story. So, you know, there's a lot of people have misconceptions about why we were here and what we were doing. Basically, the court of law, when Dino Butler and Bob Rabidou went to court, found them not guilty on the basis of self-defense. And the FBI basically attacked our people, and they've been attacking them even afterwards. So that's one of the things that I'm thankful for being here. A lot of people died since then. You know, the American Indian movement was a spiritual movement, not necessarily an armed movement, but reality did make it that we had to be armed, you know, to protect ourselves. We have a lot of people that have never been, over 60 people that their deaths have never been investigated. And recently the FBI put a little thing out, oh, this person, that person, you know, they made like 3 words about their death. You know, it came out in a document not too long ago. One was alcohol related, or, you know, dumb things. But because they know the scrutiny of 47 years later, I'm talking like maybe within the last 5 years this report has come out, because it's obvious they didn't care about our people and they didn't care to investigate their deaths when they died under their direction. Basically, when you give people free reign and automatic weapons and ammunition to target their own people, I mean, they're just as guilty. So that's one of the things that the United States government, you know, they're not gonna admit their wrongs or how they've treated all our nations. All our sovereign nations have been treated with disrespect. Our land's been taken, and they don't want to admit, or they don't want to let Leonard out of prison, because there's a lot more for them to acknowledge with them being wrong. It's the treaties, everything's interrelated. The boarding schools, they haven't even addressed that. I mean, it's all one circle, and it was an immediate attack on our families and our community from first contact. And that's one of the reasons I think that they don't do it. They don't want to put the story in our history books because the pattern's there, how they've been targeting our people, colonizing as they do to other countries. We're right here within the territory. This is our land, but they don't want to acknowledge it. But we know, and we're not going to forget that we're under treaty land and we have our own laws. We're sovereign. But that's basically some of my thoughts.
They come?
Not yet.
Wow, why'd you guys run today?
For Leonard Peltier.
Who's that?
He's a political prisoner that was locked up for something that he didn't do. He's been in there for 47 years, and the least they could do is let him out and let him die with his family. He's getting ready to die. So he's old man. He didn't do it. He's innocent.
Yeah.
Free Leonard Peltier. Free Leonard Peltier.
What's your name?
Zunia Aranez.
Zunia Aranez,
Yeah,
right on, bro.
Yeah.
Why'd you run today?
Not only did I run for Leonard Peltier, but for MMIW. We have a lot of missing sisters, especially here on our reservation. And I think it's just a nice way to spread awareness.
Hey, what's your name?
Taylor Byerly.
Wilma Blacksmith graduated from high school in June 1975, just weeks before the shootout. She's Oglala Lakota and the granddaughter of Harry and Cecilia Jumping Bull, the two Lakota elders who had invited the American Indian movement to their property to protect them from the violence of the Goon Squad, the guardians of the Oglala Nation, who were employed by the president of the tribe, Dick Wilson, to persecute AIM members and their supporters.
Me, my Aunt Lois, Selma Johnson, Pearl McCloskey, and there's another woman. We're the ones that dug Anime's grave for her. No, we couldn't find, no guy would want to do it. Nobody, so it's women. We dug her grave for her.
Over here at the cemetery.
Yeah. So, the Jumping Bulls, my grandma Cecilia and my dad's mom were sisters. So my father and his brother and sisters grew up here. My grandpa Harry and grandma Cecilia raised them. So they called each other brother and sister, you know, in the Indian way. So when we were little kids, we used to come here and grandpa used to sing and we would dance. We have a lot of good memories here, but after the shootout happened, my grandma didn't want to live here.
Oh, and that's when they took down the house?
Yeah. A week before the shootout happened was the 50th anniversary. We put a shade by the road there, and we had an honoring for them for being married for 50 years. Yeah.
And then the camp was this way?
Yeah, the camp was this way. And when you go, there's a road that goes down there, and they were camped down there. But when they started hearing the guns, or they started seeing them surrounding this place, Dean on them, they all ran up here. And he stayed behind, Joe. He stayed behind. He said, someone has to watch Grandpa and Grandma's place. And he stayed behind them. Then after he got shot, this Indian guy was walking with his hands up from the road. And when he was walking, it was Uncle Edgar Bear Runner. He came in and he asked, he wanted to negotiate to not let anybody else get killed. But little did he know that they already killed him. So, but
did they get him?
No, Edgar.
Yeah, they let him go.
They let him go because he wanted the women and children. He wanted to stop what was going on here. So today we're gonna honor him because he just recently passed away this past year too. So today I wanted to do a wiping of the tear ceremony for Joe Stuntz. Oh. You know, my dad and my mom that morning, They were team sila digging. They were team sila digging on the north side of Oglala. And this eagle came to them. And he was flapping his wings at them. And my dad said, Dolores, let's go. That eagle's saying something. When they got home, my Aunt Ida Tobacco came to the house and said, brother, go to Grandpa, go to Mom and Dad. There's something going on. There's something bad going on. There's a lot of cops, a lot of people with guns surrounding Grandma's, Mom and Dad's place. So he jumped in a car and he came this way. He drove in. When he came in, Joe Stuntz came running to the car. He told Joe, get in. We'll take you out of here. But Joe said, no, someone's got to be here to watch the old people's place. I'm going to stay. When I was in Pine Ridge, listening on the police radio about this shootout, Gladys Besnett come running in. She went downtown to check the mail. She come running in. Something's happening. Something's going on somewhere. I need to get a hold of Senator Aberesk. She kept trying to call his number, but there was always a recording about the little bighorn, so she could never get through. Well, we were listening to this police radio. We heard the feds. We got him. We got one. They were saying on the radio. When they started our geisha, we got one of them. We didn't know who it was. Gladys kept saying, I wonder who got shot. I wonder who they shot. Another time it was Joe. You know, back then, the warriors, they were strong. They weren't afraid to face what had to be done back then. And we're still doing it. We're still in the same rut today. We need to change. I want to see this change. I want to be able to go build a house in the Black Hills and take all my grandkids there. I have 41 grandkids and I have 5 great of my own children. If I counted my brothers and sisters, that'd be a lot more. But today I wanted to honor Joe Stuntz because he did the ultimate sacrifice for the people. He was a quiet man, but he was there for the people. So I want to conclude what I have to say about this, and because I'm old now and I don't know if I'll be here next year either. But I walk and pray. When I come up that hill, I start dancing with the music because that's when I know my prayers are answered, because I can make that hill. I was 17 years old when Wounded Knee happened. I was 17 years old when American Indian Movement came, and I became a member since. I'm 66 years old now. But I want to thank you all. And I want to conclude here today in memory of Joe and everyone that was mentioned, and all the other relatives that have gone on over the years. Oh, may Daki son.
Willie Black Elk is an Oglala Lakota elder. He remembers Joe Stuntz and Anime Akwash, who his community members had invited to defend them against the violent reign of terror. Grandpa, did you know him?
Huh?
Did you know him?
Yeah.
not a relative. I'm one of his supporters. He was in that shootout with the FBI's. And he's the first one that got shot. Shot him right between the eye. Got him right here. The United States Marshal killed him. And they already killed the other two FBI's got killed down below. It was a sad day for us, Lakotas, what really happened. There were too many killings on a reservation that they shouldn't be here. There's no business being here in reservation. So this won't happen. So look at what happened to Leonard Peltier. They said he did that, but no, it's not. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. Somebody else probably did, but who can I prove? No one. So today we're still praying for Leonard Peltier. We want him out. He's been in there for a long time. And he needs to be out and stay with their family over here in Oglala. This is where he's from. Oh yeah, Tukashila. Moshule apos. Moshake lele hiunte. Lele akhba. Monexi apos. Aho. Metaku yase. Aho. I always remember. Just thinking of how many people live in this reservation. Maybe 2,000, maybe 10,000 people live on this reservation. All their lives. They live here. Watch each other. Sometimes you see different people come in to our reservation. They're not from here. They're looking for something. But, you know, who knows? There's a lot of stories here. When you look at it, there's a lot of stories. People will tell you. The old people will tell you. They know more than me or more than you. They'll tell you. They tell you that what really happened. They'll tell you. Also, when I was in Nebraska, I got caught by the FBI's. They thought I was Leonard Peltier. That time I have real long hair. And I got arrested. I went to jail. They kept me in jail. And the FBI's came, they talked to me. Send me to Rapid City to do a lie detector. And they got the wrong man. They go, hey, you got the wrong man. So I got, and they brought me home and they released me from the jail. I went home. So my elder, my grandma, where'd you go? I said, oh, it's a long story. I'll tell you later. I sit in the house with her and talk to her. She believed me. Oh, yeah, I'm glad you're home. Yeah. So that's what happened. And a couple of days later, they had a shootout. That was really sad. Really sad. The Oglala community were surrounded by the United States Marshals and FBI's. There are a lot of them here after they got killed, the FBI's.
Fred Cedarface is one of the co-founders and original organizers of the Jumping Bull commemoration. He's also a member of the Oglala community and vividly remembers the time period in which Joe Stuntz and Anime Aquash and dozens others lost their lives.
23 years we pray hard that our relative and friend is released from prison. It's really difficult. It's really difficult to hear that he has been in jail, in prison for over 48 years. It's really hard. And we could just imagine what it's like for him to be sitting in a cell that's 4 by 6. Somebody else is making decisions for him. He has to, the jailers, the police, they're the ones that are telling him what to do, how to do it, where to do it. And that's really hard. He shouldn't be there at all. I know that the defense committee has been working hard with the lawyers to try to find remedies, ways to help him, ways to get him out, ways. But he believed this way. I'm going to talk briefly that back in 1970, 71, 72, there was havoc here on this reservation. There was injustices going on where people's land were taken. And so the Nachaws met at Calico. There were 12 of 13 Nachaw chiefs that came together. And they had a meeting and they were getting people's affidavits, their petitions, notarized so they could go to Washington and have that Attorney General investigate the illegal taking of their land as well as other issues, health, education, other welfare programs. And so at that time, 3 things were going on. One, the people were taking this position, the traditionalists. The second issue was our boys were coming back from the war, Vietnam. The third issue was the Vista workers were here on the reservation helping the elderly across the reservation. And they're the ones that were going and finding out why this land was illegally taken. And in the process, the tribal administration went and started beating them up, hitting them, hurting them. And so the Chaws were concerned about this. They were concerned about all this injustice that was going on. So they heard of these boys, these young men and women out on the West Coast, and they invited them. They sent for them. The Nachaws did, the elderly, the traditionalists sent for these young men to come here and help with these investigations. They brought them, they came, they talked to them, they sat them down in the center, and they asked them for help. They asked them for help. And at that time, the Nachaw sent for Stanley, who brought Pteskawi, the pipe, to this meeting, and they smoked it. There was a covenant that was made that day. And so, these boys came, Russell, Dennis, the Valcourt brothers, and including Leonard. They came because they were invited. They came to help fight for the cause, to fight for the injustices, the inequality, people getting hurt, people getting killed. They came to help. And that's why we, the Oyate, we stand here, we stand in this circle and remind you of what took place at that time. And we want to remind you that we're getting old, some of us are getting older. We're getting older and we need these young people to step up, to learn this history, to learn what took place. Because the fight isn't over. The fight isn't over, it's still going on today. And I hate to bring this up, but you know, Leonard is probably hearing about this news in prison, but these things that are going on, the Supreme Court just made a ruling. And it's going to affect all of our women, and our grandchildren and their children. But this judge stood up and he said there shouldn't be this same marriage. There shouldn't be these things going on. And so it's a matter of time before they start picking on us again. They're going to start bothering us and they're going to challenge this tribe. The IRA is under the United States Constitution. It's going to take the treaty. It's going to take the treaty. Those traditionalists that stand, it's going to take them to stand up and fight for the people, to fight for the rights. With the treaty, it's nation to nation. It's not about these issues that are going on the reservation, even though they're concerning. The treaty is nation to nation. And we need to remember that. But we need to get our young people involved and to help them understand how important this is and how the struggle is here. It hasn't left. My daughter said to me, it was kind of sad to hear this. My daughter said to me, Dad, remember back in the 70s? Remember the fights that took place? Well, it's going back to the same way. It's going back to the same way because there are 13 families across this reservation that want that power, control, and Baskaki had. They don't want. The people are used with their numbers. They get the funding. I think that we need to take a stand, and that's what Leonard was here for. He took a stand on behalf of the people. He didn't care who they were. He fought for the people. And so did the other people that we're honoring today. And again, at the Jumping Bull property, we're going to say some prayers for them. And I believe that in one in particular, choke cherry juice was brought and washed up. So we're going to feed them in a good way. I remember Leonard, and he was the spiritual advisor for the movement back at the occupation. I remember Mr. Valcourt. I heard him talk. I heard him visit, and he stood his ground. He stood his ground at sovereignty, self-determination. I also remember Tommy. Tommy left us, and I wish he had made different decisions, but he made the choice at the time. And it's sad that Tom Poorbear's gone. Tahanshi. I have another Tahanshi standing over here, and another Tahanshi. It's sad. It's sad. So the fight continues on, and in this circle, I want you to hear the spirit. Hear, feel the spirit. Our people are still in need. Our women and children are still in need. And the only way it's going to happen is if one or two of you or all of us together take a stand. Take a stand. Being radical is you say no to the group. That's what being a radical is. Being an activist, say no, and they're going to hate you. They're going to say, oh, Maya, hey, He daku shicha kua. That's being a radical and an activist. And all of you are fighting for something. All of you are fighting for something. We just need to get the word out. There's so many issues facing us today. But today, we want to remember our relative and friend, Leonard. So we're going to send a prayer to the spirits, the universe, that he's blessed with health, the cycle of life, but more especially that they can give us direction on what to do to get him out of there. He's an elderly now. We shouldn't be treating him like this. So I'm going to go ahead and sing one prayer song, do a quick prayer, and Dave's here, so Dave could do the prayer. We have a drum group, and you guys...
Lisa Bellinger is an Anishinaabe activist and educator in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. She's also a member of the American Indian Movement and sits on the American Indian Movement's Grand Governing Council. Her mother was Patricia Bellinger, who was one of the co-founders of the American Indian Movement in 1968.
Relatives, I would like to say greetings to you from the AIM Grand Governing Council. I was raised to be the new, or listed, or whatever, however you want to call it, to be the new director for AIM. Our international chapters, we're here to support the families, support Leonard Peltier, who is one of my fellow Anishinaabe relatives, one of our grandfathers, our elder. I've been here a few times before. I grew up with my uncles Clyde and Vernon. And we want to make sure that, we are continuing the work that our leaders have put in place for us. One of the last things my Uncle Clyde said was, don't give up, just like what was said here earlier. Never give up. So this fall, what we're going to be organizing, we're working on is another walk for Leonard. It's a walk, Leonard Peltier Walk to Justice. It'll start out of Minneapolis on September 1st. Ceremonies will begin August 31st, and then we'll walk to Washington, D.C., arriving there November 14th. And we want to invite you to join us to continue this walk, to continue the work, to continue to raise awareness in the campaign to free our elders. We mustn't give up. We must keep going. We have our Peltier Defense Committee. We have AIM chapters across Turtle Island, Canada, U.S. And to our young people, our up-and-coming young people, our up-and-coming young AIMsters, culture, tradition, and language. That's what Uncle Clyde always talked about. So I want to say miigwech for the beautiful songs and the prayers. And if you have any questions, Rachel, one of our up-and-coming young leaders, our young women leaders here, Rachel Thunder, who is leading the organization of the walk. So if you have any questions about the walk, come and talk to Rachel, and she'll be happy to share any information. We have a Facebook page, an event page, so you can find us on Facebook.
Carol Goki is Anishinaabe and a coordinator for the Rise Up Peltier Coalition.
For those of you that don't know, Leonard contracted COVID in the end of January of this year. Leonard has quite a few comorbidities, which means he has things that he is eventually going to die from, right? And with COVID, what we've learned is that when you have these comorbidities, your risk of dying from them increases exponentially because of COVID. So everybody, every elder, anybody that has these comorbidities should be tested, right? Leonard went into an isolation unit for 10 days. 10 days by himself, no doctor, no medical, it was dirty. He didn't have a cup to drink water. He was given peanut butter pouches and bread to eat. And Leonard doesn't have any teeth. He couldn't even get the peanut butter pouches open. He's lost at least 75 pounds in the last 3 years because they put him on a diabetic diet, which in the Bureau of Prisons means you take half their food away. Because we're not going to give him a special diet, we're just going to take it away so he loses some weight. So the congressmen that we've had reach out and advocate for him have gotten letters back like, well, he's doing real well, he's lost weight, his A1C is down, but they don't talk about anything else. So Leonard got COVID, and we don't know where he's at medically right now. We know it's not good. We know it's not. Clinically, these things like I said, acerbate, and they make these comorbidities come to fruition a lot faster. And we all know we've lost family members to COVID. He made it through COVID. He got his last booster now. So we're hoping and we're praying. But this has become an emergent situation. And that's the way we take it. And so we started this year with good energy and good, just a good way of walking around and to help identify and bring awareness to people that don't know about Leonard, to educate people, to educate the youth. So we started in Oklahoma at Philip Deere's place. We went down there and did updates, and we shared a lot of postcards down there, which I've shared some postcards with you folks. Then we went to Turtle Mountain. That's where Leonard's from, and we had a prayer gathering with his family, tribal council, and his friends, and we took those prayers with us when we left. And we decided, we didn't have a lot of money, but we decided we needed to do something. We needed to make sure America knew that Leonard was still there. He's there, he's alive, and he needs us. And so that's what we did. Jean and I and a group took off for the West Coast, and we brought awareness, updates, education, because our youth right now need to have the story of Leonard Peltier in their ear. They need to know that. That's necessary right now for the struggles that are coming. And so we took that energy with us on the West Coast, and we took those prayers with us, and we gathered more prayers, and we brought them all back here. Because this is where it started, and this is where it's going to end. Because this is the year for Peltier. Okay? I don't need to say it again, but Leonard needs to be free, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that that happens. I have to say, like Jean said, we have the best committee. I was told a couple days ago, this is the best committee they've seen since the 70s. Okay? We're getting things done. We have people like Nick Estes, Janine Yazzie, we have Ruth Buffalo. We have people coming from everywhere to help. We have legislators. We have faith healers. 250 faith healers jumped on board. And like Fred was saying about the other countries, we've got Spain, Germany, Italy, and France, and of course the West Coast. Tony Gonzalez did a big commemoration day today out there, and we just have to keep up and keep calling the White House, calling or emailing the White House. It sounds silly, I know it does, it's like nobody's really listening, but they are. This is a political game for them. It's all about politics, it's all about getting a vote, right? It's unfortunate. That's not what it means to us, but to them, that's what it means. And for those of you that don't know, there's nothing judicially we can do for Leonard right now. There's nothing. They have made sure the Supreme Court has denied a retrial, every appeal has been denied, every parole has been denied, the only chance, and compassionate release, right? Leonard falls into the perfect category for compassionate release. Do you think anybody in Coleman has got a compassionate release? Not even the women who were dying from Legionnaires got a compassionate release, let alone Leonard Peltier. So 3 compassionate releases, 2 were denied, the other one they just didn't respond to. So we have a clemency. That's what we have. We have a clemency. We have Joe Biden. Okay? He's a politician. But we have hope with him. We have hope, and we have good energy coming from the White House telling us that he's close. He's close. This is the best campaign he's had in 28 years. And unfortunately, it took him getting COVID for that to happen. It took Jean and I going down to Tampa and doing a press conference and screaming at the top of our lungs so the world would hear how they're treating these prisoners. Because Leonard didn't get COVID from another inmate. He got COVID from a guard. Because the guards were feeding him his insulin through the food tray. Through the food tray. You know how dirty that food tray is? Were they wearing their masks? No. We go to see them, we had to have a mask on. But they didn't. They walked around without masks. They never washed the phone in between visits. They never cleaned anything. They never kept people 6 feet apart. In fact, the day that Leonard caught COVID, they let him sit in the general public for 10 hours. By the next week, 20 more people, including guards, have been infected. Because, they just found a new way to start killing off our elders. Okay? We're not going to let him use COVID as a tool or as a weapon. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So we're going to continue, we hope and pray that this clemency comes through before midterms, but if it doesn't, we're going to DC with AIM. Okay, we're all going to join forces, and we're going to bring a lot of people to DC because this man needs to be released. Like she said, James Reynolds was the original prosecuting attorney. He was a supervisor to Evan Holtman, the supervisor. He knew everything that was going on. He has now wrote a letter to Joe Biden, begging and pleading with him to release Leonard because they railroaded Leonard. They gave him an unjust and unfair trial, and they theorized, well, if he didn't do it this way, then he probably did it this way. And if that didn't work out, then they're going to try another theory. And in this letter, this 2-page letter, it's very clear. There's no controversy. There's no controversy with anybody. Even if you do believe that Leonard did anything wrong. He served the 42 years. It's now a 47 year, 5 years after. He needs to be released. And that's why we call him a political prisoner, because he's only in there because of his ideology, because of his beliefs. And before I finish here, I know you guys are tired and you want to listen to some good music and you had great food. But about 6 months ago, I learned from actually a playwright who had been working on writing a book about Leonard and AIM, Dennis Banks and a few others. And she came across the adoptive mother of Leonard in Canada. Her name is Ethel Pearson. Ethel Pearson gave Leonard his spirit name, Garthulus. Garthulus means he who draws the people to him. And she did that to guarantee that he had that dual citizenship so that he could stay in Canada. Well, unfortunately, they lied, and they got coerced statements to get him out of Canada. But in that same conversation she had with the playwright, she says, you know, Leonard's going to spend, and this woman, Ethel Pearson, let me tell you, was a very strong, well-respected Klans mother in Canada. Very respected. Even the jailers even moved aside when she walked in. But she says, I want to tell you something right now. Leonard's going to spend a lot of time in prison. He's going to be there a long time. But he's going to be released. She says, I won't be here to see it. The spirits will be here, and I will be one of those spirits. But he will be released, and it will be because of a large group of women leading the movement to get him home. And that's what we have right now in our committee. We have strong, strong women, and that's what we've been doing. So for the last 6 months, when we heard this, it was right on key, right on key. And then we get news from Washington that this clemency is getting close. Right? Next year, when we come to commemorate, we're going to have Leonard next to us. We have to all believe that. Leonard will be here with us next year. We won't celebrate another year without him.
Watch that. Okay, watch that.
That's elder abuse. That's elder abuse. No, why? The one time he wants to be an elder, he gets in line first.
Chow line.
Chow line.
Use the elder card. I learned that from Watu.
Oh.
I use the elder card.
Elder card. Posso tutte le mangia però. What?
We're almost there, people.
in 1973. Hey, 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 Joe